Welcome to Swampscott, Massachusetts. First settled in 1629 and incorporated in 1852. Approximately 3 square miles and over 15,000 residents make up this seaside town. The name derives from the Native American Swampscott, meaning red rocks. The local poet Alonzo Lewis wrote, "Red glow the cliffs on Fisherman's Beach." The original Nomkieg boundaries of Swampscott extended from Stacy Brook bordering Lynn to Beaver Brook on the Marblehead line and inland to Essex Street. Essex Street and Humphrey Street were two important Native American trails that passed through the town. In 1604, when Samuel de Champlain sailed down the coast of Massachusetts and saw the North Shore, he remarked that the canoes of those who live there are made of a single piece and very liable to turn over if one is not skillful in managing them. Modern-day kayaks are reminiscent of these early boats. The Indians thought the first ship was a walking island, and the masts were trees, the sails white clouds. Champlain, a French explorer, also noted, "So many smokes and natives running to the surf to observe the ships all along the shore. There's a great deal of land cleared up and planted with Indian corn. The corn is very pleasant and agreeable." European visitors brought with them diseases that the Indians had no immunity to, wiping out as much as 90% of the Indians in Massachusetts. They lived in dense communities, which allowed the diseases to spread quickly. English explorer John Smith visited New England in 1614. When he returned 8 years later, he noted, "God has laid this country open for us. Where I had seen 100 or 2 people, there are scarce 10 to be found." Today, we have the medicine and science to mitigate some of the damages caused by plagues. In 1629, Poquanam, the sachem of Swampscott, also known as Black Will, had his camp located on Black Will's Cliff. A chasm in the rocks was known as the Cradle. A guest house called the Cliff House stood on Black Will's Cliff. They built steps from the house to the beach, which are still remaining today. Presently, St. John's parking lot and a small park with a shrine to Mary are located there. Longfellow said, "Till my soul is full of longing for the secret of the sea, and the heart of the great ocean sends a thrilling pulse through me." In 1629, Francis Ingalls, one of the first European settlers, built a tannery on Humphreys Brook, located near the corner of Burrell Street and Paradise Road in Swampscott. John Humphrey, the first deputy governor of Massachusetts in 1629, lived in Swampscott. He contributed to the banishment of Anne Hutchinson. His home is believed to have stood in the Elmwood Street vicinity. There is a plaque where his house once stood. Charlie Baker, our current governor's home, is located close to where the Humphreys house once stood. Swampscott's own Abednego Ramsdell fought the British and was killed in the Battle of Lexington and Concord on April 19, 1775, Patriots' Day. There is a marker for his service near the original location for his home. John Glover was a merchant seaman from Marblehead. In 1775, he formed the 14th Continental Regiment that fought in the Revolutionary War. George Washington commissioned Glover's vessel Hannah to plunder British ships as a privateer. It was the beginning of the Continental Navy. His regiment is famous for ferrying George Washington's army across the Delaware. In 1782, he retired to Glover Farm, which was originally owned by British loyalist William Brown prior to the Revolution and confiscated by the Massachusetts colonial government. It became the Sunbeam Inn from 1920 until 1955. Restaurateur Anthony Athanas established the General Glover House restaurant, which had an American colonial theme from 1957 until 1990. Today, the property is vacant. In 1857, Louisa May Alcott's sister Lizzie visited Swampscott for her health. Alcott writes of this visit in Little Woman, published in 1868. during the long hours when she lay on the warm rocks with her head on Joe's lap, while the winds blew healthfully over her and the sea made music at her feet. Her heroine Beth says, "It's like the tide. When it turns, it goes slowly, but it can't be stopped." In 1866, Mary Baker Eddy was living in Swampscott. After a fall on the ice, Mary Baker Eddy's recovery inspired the discovery of Christian Science, spiritual healing for disease using prayer, not medicine. Health is not a condition of matter, but of mind. She was influenced by Phineas Quimby, a homeopathic healer, and Eastern religions. In 1875, she wrote her book, Science and Health. She built a church in Lynn and a church in Boston and had a home in Chestnut Hill. According to Smithsonian Magazine, she is one of the most influential people. She wrote, "To watch the moonbeam on the wave, then catch an occasional glimpse in another survey of thought of one's spiritual self, to see what shadows we are and what shadows we pursue." In 1844, the industrialist Enoch Reddington Mudge had a 130-acre summer home, Elmwood, built in Swampscott. He lived in it until his death in 1881. In 1888, his land was subdivided into 191 lots. A large residential neighborhood was planned, designed by Frederick Law Olmsted. Design elements included curvilinear road layouts, traffic islands, and using topographical features in the layout of streets. And they also incorporated fine architecture in the buildings. It is bound by New Ocean Street, Paradise Road, Swampscott Ave, Reddington Street, and Burrell Street. Swampscott began as a fishing and farming village. The first Europeans saw fish jumping out of the water. Lobster was so plentiful you could walk into the water and pick them up. In 1808, the lobster trap was invented in Swampscott by Ebenezer Thorndike. And in 1814, Theophilus Brackett invented the Swampscott dory, a flat-bottom boat designed to be launched off the beach. Fishing remained an important industry until 1890. The current fish house was built in 1896 to replace the fish houses that were moved off of Blaney Beach. It guaranteed a forever fisherman's landing and a suitable fish house. It is the oldest active fish house in the country. Where the fishing shacks were cleared, a wall was erected, land filled, and a bandstand added to become Swampscott's first park. The English cannon captured in the War of 1812 marks the site of the original fish house. It was used as a fog warning and is now dedicated to Swampscott fishermen. An eagle stands for all the early bird pilots who dared to soar, and the Seaman's Memorial, an anchor believed to be from the Tedesco, a bark that sank off the coast, are located in this park, which is now dedicated to General John R. Chasen, Chief of Staff of the U.S. Marine Corps. Picturesque Fisherman's Beach has been a favorite image of Swampscott painters and photographers. The Lynn Beach Painters, a group of American marine impressionists at the turn of the century, used the beach for inspiration. Photographs of the beach were used for postcards, and now images are shared on social media networks. The beach is now mostly a recreational town beach where boaters, sunbathers, swimmers, walkers, and more enjoy the offerings year-round. The Swampscott Club, a men's social club overlooking Fisherman's Beach, is dedicated to boating. President Ulysses S. Grant is rumored to have visited there. They were known for sponsoring the Dory Regatta, and every 4th of July they open their doors to the public. The Eastern Railroad steam train from Boston commenced in 1838. The current rail station at Swampscott was built in 1868. Across the street was Calvary's grocery store, which is now the Railroad Ave Professional Building. In 1872, the Swampscott spur to Marblehead was added, with stops at Phillips Beach and Beach Bluff, which had a post office. Where the train crossed Humphrey was the Phillips Beach Fire Station. In 1890, Boston and Maine bought the rail line from Easton. The spur was operational until 1959. The railbed, a National Grid utility corridor, is now in development to become a rail trail, a recreational space for town that will connect to the Marblehead Rail Trail. In 1874, a trolley was extended from Lynn, which was at first horse-drawn. In 1884, the cars were electrified. It ran along Humphrey Street to Beach Bluff and then on to Marblehead until 1937. Humphrey Street was dug up and widened in 1914. A pedestrian right-of-way was built in the early 1900s connecting Ingram Terrace to Rockland Street for trolley access. 3 years after the Puritan settlement of Salem, John Endicott, first governor of Massachusetts, told some of the settlers to go where thou would, and thus began the first settlement of Swampscott. At the time, the native population was very small and seasonal. Swampscott started as a rural town. The first streets were Essex, Cherry, Humphrey, and Orient, which is now known as Puritan. Burrell Street was a cart path with trails connecting farms. William Witter built a home in 1629 opposite Black Will's Cliff. His claim of purchasing Swampscott from Black Will for 2 pestle stones was not recognized by the court. The Blaney House was built by Captain Ralph King in 1641. The Burrell House, 1700, can claim George Washington stopped here. He may have passed through Swampscott after his visit to Salem and Marblehead on his return to Boston during his campaign in 1789. Down by the fish house was the town pound until 1829 for stray livestock. This medieval village enclosure of a stone or wooden pen was to hold stray livestock, with a fine levied for owners to retrieve animals. Fishing shacks can still be spotted along Puritan Road. From around 1916 until 1954, Chasen's Boathouse made practical boats. In the 1800s, as America became industrialized, Swampscott became the first resort town. When the train was extended into Swampscott, there was a great increase in summer visitors. Many who summered here from 1870 to 1940 were on the social register. The Boston Herald described the coastal North Shore in 1894 as charming villas by the sea and handsome country residences where elegant leisure is enjoyed amid natural simplicity. Nature grown so coquettish as to exhale a compound extract of salt air in the aromatic odor of the pines. Woodside Farm, built in 1824, was purchased by General Charles Stetson, an associate of Enoch Reddington Mudge. His property abutted the Mudge estate, with Paradise Road being a dirt road that connected the properties. Daniel Webster was said to be a visitor. In 1848, Blisswood was built on Little's Point. James Little altered and enlarged it in 1884. Elmwood on Monument Ave was built in 1880 in the Georgian Revival style. The owner, Elihu Thompson, was founder of General Electric. The building has served as town hall since 1944. There was once an observatory on the grounds. Grasshead on Little's Point was built 1882. Arthur Little, an architect, designed it for his father, James Little, introducing the shingle style. White Court was built in 1896 on Little's Point in the neoclassical style by Frederick E. Smith, a manufacturer of railroad cars. President Calvin Coolidge summered here in 1925 from June 22nd until September 10th. In 1864, Charles Galoops, a lawyer, built Strodehurst, a 40-room mansion on Galoops Point. It was destroyed by a fire in 1876. Arches was built in 1904 at Phillips Beach for Andrew Preston, president of the United Fruit Company. The Stephen Wardwell home, built in 1890 on Humphrey Street, is now the rectory for St. John's Church. On Reddington Street, there is a Gothic Revival home built in 1845. The Hope Cottage on Essex Street was a turn-of-the-century home for young unwed mothers who went away to have their babies, which were given up for adoption. The Florence Crittenton Mission was established by New York businessman Charles Crittenton, whose 4-year-old daughter Florence had died from scarlet fever. In 1951, Sylvia Plath spent the summer at Beach Bluff as a babysitter for the Mayo family, caring for 3 small children. There are references to the area in her novel, The Bell Jar. In The Babysitter, she writes, "The bold gulls dove over us as if they owned it all. We picked up sticks of driftwood and beat them off, then stepped down the steep beach shelf and into the water."
Rockland Boulevard, Inland, Massachusetts, Swampscott. I'm just making this up.
Some visitors to Swampscott preferred to stay in rented lodgings, which ran from boarding houses to opulent hotels. Tavern owner S.H. Wardwell built the Lincoln House in 1864 on Fishing Point. It was dismantled in 1915. The Wiley House, whose proprietor was James Wiley, began as a boarding house in 1910. Later it became the Seabreeze Inn. It was destroyed by a fire in 1975. Big Anawan was a family hotel located near Tupelo Road. It was later called the Oakland House. The Ocean House was built in 1835 on Wales Beach. After 2 fires, in 1864 and 1881, it was reborn as the New Ocean House. In 1902, it was renovated, creating the largest wooden structure resort hotel in Massachusetts. It was a total loss after burning in a fire in 1969. Hotel Preston was established by Andrew Preston on Beach Bluff in 1872. It burned down in 1957. Captain Jack's, built in 1835, started out as a guest house, and from 1970 until 2011, it was a waterfront inn, the last public accommodations in Swampscott. It was torn down in 2012 to make room for condos. The town library was founded in 1852 with a gift from Dr. William R. Lawrence, a summer residence. It began as a subscription library. It became a free library in 1879 and was housed in a room in the town hall. The new library building was opened in 1917 on land donated by Elihu Thompson. There was an addition to the building in 1955 and again in 1996. Until 1953, the Sculpins were Swampscott's original team mascot. A sculpin is a small fish, and Swampscott is a small fishing village. Stan Bondalevich coached Swampscott football from 1953 until 1976. He led Big Blue to 8 unbeaten championship seasons. Dick Lynch was a 3-sport coach for Swampscott High. He came to Swampscott in 1954. As an assistant manager in football, he contributed to Big Blue's 32-game winning streak. As a basketball coach, he led the team to a state championship in 1968 at the Boston Garden. One of his players, Fran Sheehan, went on to play bass for the rock band Boston. The baseball team won 2 Northeast Conference crowns and attended 2 state finals under his tenure. Mike Lynch was an all-star athlete at Swampscott High, coached by his father in football, baseball, and basketball. He played football and baseball at Harvard.
And they're all here. The whole season's right here on the foot of Mike Lynch. Right-footed kicker. Snap from center, good. Ball down, kick up. It is good. It's good. Mike Lynch hits a 26-yard field goal. Mike Lynch. Harvard takes a 10-7 lead, and maybe the Ivy League title is going to rise.
As a beloved local celebrity, Mike Lynch recently retired from a 37-year career in sportscasting, earning 16 Sportscaster of the Year awards.
I like Mike.
Dick Geron set Northeast Conference records as a Big Blue running back. He also played on the championship Swampscott basketball team. He went on to become an All-American at Yale and played for 8 years for the NFL, following up with 9 seasons as head coach for the Chicago Bears and Buffalo Bills. He was AP NFL Coach of the Year in 2001. In 1967, Swampscott football captain Bill Adams played both offense and defense line. He had a strong career at Holy Cross College as well as 6 years for the NFL, including the Buffalo Bills for 46 games. He became head coach for Linfield High School. Big Blue two-way lineman Tom Toner helped Dick Geron set rushing and scoring records. He played for Idaho State and was captain. He played 4 seasons with the Green Bay Packers from 1973 until 1977. He then became a sports agent. His brother Ed Toner, a current Swampscott resident, played with the Patriots from 1967 until 1969.
She drives a little red scooter up and down the street. A little red scooter with a funny beat. It goes putt-putt.
Hometown hero Tony Conigliaro attended St. Mary's High School in Lynn. He started playing for the Boston Red Sox at age 19. The right-handed power hitter hit a home run his first home game at bat. Johnny Pesky was one of his managers. He had a promising career until 1967. At age 22, an errant pitch knocked him out and caused permanent eye damage. This was the year of the impossible dream, when the Red Sox won the pennant. He came back after a year but continued to be affected by poor eyesight and was unable to sustain his baseball career. Because fans' light-colored clothing distracted his eye from the ball, center field sections 34 and 35, Fenway's Conigliaro's corner, was blocked off with a tarp during day games. Billy Conigliaro played Big Blue baseball with Dick Lynch as his coach. The outfielder joined his older brother Tony on the Red Sox in 1969 and 1970. He continued his MLB baseball career until 1973. He won a World Series championship with the Oakland A's. Johnny Pesky, who was a longtime Swampscott resident, was an MLB ball player from 1942 until 1954, playing on the Red Sox 8 of those years, missing 2 years to serve in World War II. In 1946, he was an All-Star. From 1963 to 1964, he was manager for the Red Sox. In his later years, he served Boston as an honorary manager and coach. In the North Shore Spirit, a minor league that played at Frazier Field in Lynn, Pesky was welcomed as a guest coach. Pesky Pole, the foul pole at Fenway, is named for him.
Well, I grew up in Swampscott, Massachusetts.
How about Swampscott?
Swampscott has town pride. Throughout the year, activities and celebration bring the town together. On January 1st, the Swampscott Yacht Club's Polar Plunge at Swampscott Beach raises money for a different charity every year. On the 4th of July, the town has a strawberry festival, parade, concert, and fireworks. In late summer, there is a bonfire on the beach. Beer gardens popped up last summer, and the fall has a car show. The Thanksgiving football game is a good place for catching up with old friends and supporting the football team. The Police Association's holiday parade and family events at Town Hall bring old and young together to end the year. After a few high-profile police brutality cases, the world is waking up to the injustices that people of color face. Being home with COVID's social distancing, we have begun to experience the wildlife around us. The world has gotten quieter and pollution has gone down. Our pets were also happy to have us around. People have been quarantined in their homes, unable to go out and celebrate in the usual way, yet they have found new ways to communicate, to celebrate, to work, to live.